evening. Good evening, good evening. I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. Certainly these are important sessions and important times, and for all of us at LA Fire Justice, I think it's very important that we, as often as we can, present information to you to bring you up to speed on what's happening, not only in the state of how we got here and the fire began and how we're progressing through that process, but also what next looks like. And tonight we have an opportunity to give you some information in terms of how this lawsuit is progressing and where the judge is coming in on some of this. And I think that Doug Boxer or Michael will give you an opportunity to hear what's happening on that front. I want to also just thank you and appreciate, for me, the opportunity to serve as the CEO for LA Fire Justice. Having served in the legislature and prior to that on the city council in Pasadena, I've had what has amounted to a lifetime of public service, and having an opportunity to serve community and people who are always looking for solutions to problems. And so I grew up trying to help find those solutions. And so when my time in the legislature expired and I had an opportunity to sit down with Doug and the team and become familiar with how they do business, the integrity, the character, the values that they have as they go out and try to protect and represent properly victims of wildfires as over their careers in the 20,000 and greater. And so having that kind of experience and understanding how important it is to represent a community, not just through the process of litigation, but also the process of healing. And so being able to be a part of LA Fire Justice and knowing that we have a talented group of people who are there and available to help answer questions. And for those who are already our clients, we thank you for that. Thank you for your confidence. For those who are still looking for representation, we hope that you'll hear something tonight that will give you a greater inspiration and comfort and confidence in what this group of lawyers can do. I'm going to introduce Doug Boxer, and then we're going to start right into our program. But let me just say that, Doug is someone that I met recently, but I feel like I've known him my entire life through his political family, and his mother is former U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer, and my dad, who recently passed away, Nate Holden. Our families' paths were always crossing. So I call it divine intervention, that we are joined together here at this particular time to help represent a community and making sure that we get you back to a place of healing and get you back to a place where you're able to see your life restored and get you back to as normal as we possibly can through this very dramatic and unfortunate set of circumstances. So let me introduce Doug Boxer and give him an opportunity to greet you, and we'll get started with our program.
Thank you guys very much. Chris, it's an honor to work with you. Honestly, the public service part of your career is tremendous. I coming from a political family, sometimes you feel pressure to do that. I could never get over the hump, but Chris jumped in with both feet with a famous last name, but had to prove himself, and he did so by representing so many of you probably in this room for so many years. So really grateful that you've joined the team, honored that you're leading us in this effort. Welcome everybody. We're in a little bit of a different place tonight. We're in Arcadia. Super happy to be here. We know so many people who were displaced moved to various parts of the San Gabriel Valley or even beyond. And so we're trying to get out into the community to be more available in places where you all might be. And so we'd love to hear from you. If you think this is a great idea and we should keep doing it, that's awesome. And so we're very excited to get on and have an update on litigation from Michael. But before we do that, I have two other jobs to do. One is I want to just point out the people in the room and outside of the room who are in green shirts. They're back over here, Zaria and Janet, and who else is over there? Angela, and Lily is outside, and Pamela and Christian. They're our eyes and ears in the community. These are our community outreach people. Most of these people are from your community. They're from the communities that have been impacted by the Eaton Fire. I grew up in Northern California. I lived in LA for a number of years in the 90s, but I'm not from here. I know what happened to this community because I've seen it happen in 10 or 11 other communities where I've operated, but I'm not from here. I don't understand the sensibilities. I'm learning because we have this amazing team of people who are from your community. So seek them out. They're really here to help us be eyes and ears. They want to see the community get justice from Edison, and we're super excited that they're part of the team. I also want to point out Rico Reyes, who's another lawyer who's recently joined our team. Rico's a fantastic lawyer. He's from Texas. Don't hold it against him. We actually have a couple Texans here. But Rico's is a tremendous lawyer who has helped and has worked with this organization and us and our law firms in some other very large cases. So I'm glad to have another lawyer on the team here. All right. The other job is for me is to introduce you to some of the work we've done in Maui. And I know many of your clients, you may have seen this video before, but for those of you that have not been here and don't know much about what we do, like I said, I've done 11 fires. Mikal, I think, is on 23 wildfires started by utilities, going to communities to try to help people get justice. And one of the places we were most recently in and delivered a $4 billion settlement for the people in Maui, who are just about to have all their claims submitted and hopefully starting to get paid very soon, early in 2026. And so I want to introduce you to someone there who we worked with. Her name is Tia, and here's her story.
My name is Tiara Rivera. I am local, born and raised here on Maui. I am a mother of 2 young boys. I was in Kona and I was flying home after a day of work, and to see to the left side of the plane, all I saw was the black funnel of smoke coming from Lahaina that just didn't look normal. But now I was like, what is going on? There's Lahaina fire. Like, that you could see it, and like immediate panic. And all I could think about was my grandmother and my family, that she's 89, she doesn't move around much. It's terrifying. You don't know, you don't know what's going on. I'm still in pieces. We all are. Since the fires, the only thing that my heart and energy wanted to do was to serve my community, to help. And I really wanted to hear the hearts behind the team. So for me, the choice to work with Hiko Lawsuit, first and foremost, they walked the walk. They didn't come into our community like, this is how we're gonna do it. They have the know-how, they have the understanding. Unfortunately, they have been through other fires, other wildfires and devastations that have taken out towns just like it did to Lahaina. So they understand what this journey is gonna look like. I'm ready to fight. The war paint is on. It's January 2025, and went to the property just this past Friday, and Lahaina's, it's coming along. We're in the rebuilding process, and it's exciting to see the building that's happening and the movement that's continuing forward. It's obviously, we'd like to be a lot further than we are, but I'm excited that we are moving in a positive direction. It's a long road ahead, and I'm grateful to be where we are today. I know 18 months ago we were in a lot scarier place, and there wasn't a lot of hope. But today, January 2025, I'm hopeful that we're rebuilding Lahaina and that we're going to come back stronger. Something that I could lean on and trust about this team was that they've done it before. They've helped the Paradise Fires. They came down and they have helped our Lahaina community and our Kula community here on Maui, and they're still here. They haven't left like they promised when they first landed. They said, we're here, we're gonna be here to the end. They're still here, they still have an office on Maui, and they're still plugging away, and they've earned my trust, they've earned my family's trust, and we believe in them, and we're grateful for them that they came down to our community and helped us in a time when we were really lost.
All right, so thank you for indulging us and watching that. And you heard Tia talk about hope. It's kind of a hard word for people to wrap their arms around in this community at this point, 7 months in. But I promise you that this team of people is going to work their tails off to make you feel hopeful. And Michael's going to give you an update on some stuff that I think will shed some light on where the process is going. But I want to introduce one more person before I introduce Michael, and that's Corey Williams from the Small Business Administration. And we talk about hope. The SBA is actually providing resources to people as we speak, and it's really giving them hope. So, Corey, why don't you come up and just explain what the programs for a minute, and then I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you so much, Doug. Again, my name is Corey Williams, Public Information Officer with the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. And, you know, I love and support all the LAFJ, what they're doing. But the one thing I want to touch on is that for those that may still are, you know, waiting for insurance recovery or having delayed claims, you still potentially can apply for the SBA loan as a homeowner. The one thing is that you have to do it in person, and if you apply, you cannot just say, well, we just didn't know SBA was here, or we didn't know FEMA was here. You have to, you know, many of you all had emotional, mental trauma as a result of these fires. So one of the things that whenever you're going to visit the center, if you do decide to pursue the SBA loan, you have to kind of mention that there may have been some emotional, mental trauma that delayed you in making that decision, you know, taking care of a family member that may have been impacted medically. So there's still help out there. You just have to kind of be able to explain as to why it's well beyond the deadline, because there was actually a 60-day period when President Biden granted the declaration. Then there was an extra 14 days, and then SBA added another 60 days on top of it, which was May 31st. So I still want to make sure everyone is getting the help that they need. I will be here all throughout the meeting if there's any questions. But also another thing is mitigation. When you're rebuilding, you want to rebuild stronger, and you can be approved for up to 20% of your total loss for mitigative measures. And that's very important as you're rebuilding your new home, is to be able to not only have those you know, the actual opportunity to not only get a better roof, better shutters, you know, strapping on the garage doors, whatever is necessary, sprinkler systems to safeguard the home from future harm. And $1 spent on mitigation saves $6 down the road. So feel free to pull me aside. Like I say, I'm totally supportive of LA Fire Justice, and, you know, I'll be here throughout the meeting. But if there's any questions you may have, thank you so much, Doug, for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Corey. The SBA is doing great work, and they've extended the deadlines, and they're doing their best to ensure that everyone in this community hopefully can get some resources that they need to help in the immediate future. One last person I know is just joined by Nathaniel Mack and Bishop Mark Smith. They're with an organization called Justice for 626, who are community partners in this. Nathaniel's another Texas lawyer. See a consistency here. But thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate your support as well. Okay, now it's time for the main event. Coming in, standing 6 foot. Michael Watts has been my partner for 8 years in wildfire litigation. And I didn't know Michael until he landed in California in 2017, when Pacific Gas and Electric burned down much of the town of Santa Rosa, destroying 5,500 homes and killing 24 people. And then the next year in Paradise, destroying 14,000 homes and killing 85 people. But I couldn't think of a better partner. Michael's legal mind is brilliant, and he's a tactician in the courtroom and with strategy on litigation. Sometimes I like to say he's playing chess while the others are playing checkers. So without further ado, Michael, welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, guys. I bring you good tidings from the progressive politics, which is the state of Texas. And I bring apologies for what's happening there. Let me start with a question. Who here has never been to one of these meetings? Okay, about a third of you. I'm Michael Watts. I'm a lawyer in Texas who happened to be in Benicia, California, getting ready to try a case for Valero, who's made my job harder. I'm told that they're shutting that thing down, which is not cool. But in any event, I was out here when the 2017 North Bay fires started, and I saw a need. We got involved. I rounded up all my buddies, my best friend Christian, all of his team, and we moved to Santa Rosa. A year later, we were in Chico. A year after that, we were up in Redding on the Zog fire, back to Kincaid, over and over and over again. It's just, it's pathetic. But it's a continued process of outdated utility equipment leading to ignitions in high wildfire risk times and areas and burning down fellow Californians' homes. The technology is there to stop it. It is progressively getting better, but not fast enough for your homes, and I'm so sorry for that. My technical advisor over here shows up at all these meetings and tells me what I got right and what I got wrong, and I think I'm getting better as he sends me he grades my paper after every one of these. Don't say that. Don't say this. And I try not to. But ideally, what's happening now is I used to spend 90% of this talk telling you how the fire started. And as the last 7 months have happened, we kind of convinced the other side that we know what happened and that they did it. And so there's two sides of a lawsuit. One's liability, the whodunit, and the second is damages. How much do you owe because you've done it? And the speech is really kind of morphing from 90% of me trying to convince people that they did it when their original story was, no, we didn't, to now everybody kind of understands that we've proven that, and they owe it. Now, when I say there's two sides to a lawsuit, you have the burden of proof on both sides. You can't just show up and say, okay, you did it, now pay me. You have to prove to the dollar how much money they owe you. And that's where Christian's group and LA Fire Justice and Doug and Chris and all these guys, we've got 20-something people here around the clock. It's a one-by-one take you through what we've learned over the last 23 fires and what we have to prove to get you. Some of these cases have 9 or 10 experts that because we've represented 21,000 wildfire survivors, we've got the economies of scale to get these guys to be able to come in, and ladies, to be able to come in and help you in a cost-efficient manner. So let me just kind of run through the liability side, but the more important side is damages and legislative advocacy. Normally, it's a bad thing when the legislature is in session. When it happens in Austin, we all hold our nose and just wait for bad things. There is something incredibly important happening right now in Sacramento, and I need your help. I need a letter writing campaign. I need a phone calling campaign. I need pressure on your assemblyman. I need pressure on your senator. I need pressure on the Senate pro tem. I need pressure on the Speaker of the House. And I need encouragement to the governor who's taken the lead on this, and I'll take you through all of that. The bottom line is that what we used to talk about a lot of was the lawsuit and what's going on and a little bit about what we're going to do after we're successful. And when I started out here, nobody believed me. Southern California Edison was saying we didn't do it. And we showed up and said, yes, you did. So we've modified this a lot to talk a lot more about the political aspects because it has everything to do with how fast you're going to pay. Because as I like to tell the joke, and it's not funny, the worst offense ever invented in a lawsuit is what we in South Texas call the nolo dinero defense. I don't have enough money to pay for the damage that I cause, and it's hard to believe that a multi-billion-dollar utility like Southern California Edison can invoke the nolo dinero defense, but that's what they've done. They no longer can sell the soap that we didn't do it because you have to believe your eyes, and we've got the proof. But now it's a situation we don't have enough money. We need the state to come bail us out. And so we'll talk about that through political and financial advocacy efforts that Chris is consulting on. He's not allowed to do it for a year until he's out of the legislature for a year, but he's helping steer us in the right direction. So the first thing is community outreach. What I have learned in doing this, and Aaron Brockovich taught me this, is if any one of you took on Southern California Edison, they'd squash you like a bug. Unless you're a multi-billionaire or, Elon Musk's brother or something. You don't have the cash to take on a major corporation like this. But collectively, if the entire town comes together and gets unified, you become a real problem in a hurry. And that's what we're pretty good about doing. I think this, Christian, is this the 5th meeting this week that you've been to? We're doing it over and over and over again, and we get 20 new clients and 32 new clients and 17 new clients, and we will continue to do this because information is power, and we need to get that information to you. And one of the reasons is that they were selling the soap a week after the fire that they've seen no evidence that their electrical equipment was the cause of the fire. What they didn't know is we already had experts climbing up and down that hill, and it was obvious what started the fire about 6 days in. In fact, I told Christian, you need to move all your people out there because they did this fire, and they were saying, no, we didn't. And so we held a press conference on the 27th of January where we, in effect, showed what we had learned. And it was like a bomb went off because we had digitally reconstructed a 5-mile area of the side of the hill where the fire happened, and we know within 0.2 of an inch where all the stuff was that was out there. We had videos from 14 now of your neighbors, pictures, videos from 14 different perspectives that all showed the same thing, and that was that the fire began in a particular location next to a little stubby transmission tower. And I'll take you through that. But the bottom line is we showed this video, and Pedro Pizarro, the CEO of Edison International, says, well, we saw the video, but there's just things we don't understand there. In other words, it shocked the hell out of us. But we're not ready to say it's our fault because we've been saying it was the poor guy camping down the hill. And it wasn't. He was camping over 1,000 feet down the hill against the wind. And so we started having these meetings. And for everyone that I show up at, they do 20. My job is just to keep the information flowing. They video that, not because I have a big ego. I do. But no, they're shooting the video so we can send it to the thousands of people that we already represent and get everybody updated, whether they come to the meeting or not. And you'll get a transcript and a video of that. And so this is, I come out about once a month. I've got a bunch of other stuff going on, but as often as they'll have me, I will be here. It's not that hard to tell a boy from Texas you get to get out of the Texas heat and go to Los Angeles where they have outdoor air conditioning. And so I like to come out here, and we continue to do that. So how did the Eaton Fire start? As I like to explain, we know from satellite video where the smoke was coming from. You just keep going until there's not any smoke. You follow the opposite direction of the wind, and you can figure out the general area of origin. And then we lay down the electrical infrastructure to see whether there's utility equipment over the approximate area of origin. And when we do that, we can tell that the area of origin was right here, and we could tell that there was a transmission line between the Gould and the Goodrich substation. So that our alarm bells went off that maybe something is up. But that doesn't get you anywhere close to where you need to be. So we start examining, a 10-mile area, every transmission pole, every line. We've got flying drones and the like, and we started to center in on this area that I like to call Tower 1, Tower 2, and Tower 3. The utility calls it MT161. They also call it Tower 208. All of the videographic evidence says it started in Tower 208, or what a simple boy from Texas calls Tower number 3. Okay? And how do we know that? Well, we had people out here doing, what's called photogrammetry, taking the videos, doing all this work. My guys have been out here for 3 weeks straight, from about January the 7th to the end of January. The guy wanted to go home and see his wife. I told him on a Friday afternoon, you can go. About an hour after I said you could go, my buddy Jerry Singleton, one of my colleagues that does this, was representing this guy in the ARCO station that produced a video, security video, that happened to be pointing towards the direction where we knew the fire started. The video shows a light. That's not the start of the fire. That is a tree. I mean, that's a street light. But if you watch it, you're going to see an area right in here where something happens. It's pretty nondescript by itself, but as luck would have it, my experts had spent a bunch of my money digitizing through what's called LiDAR the entire area, so I knew what equipment was up there. So what we had to do is, using the principle of photogrammetry, lay the two over on each other, and you could see the fire starting and the like. And so we did this from 14 different perspectives, and here's the security video. This is at, on the 7th, you can see it. And why do we do it on the 7th? Because we're just laying down the fixed stuff. And then you use photogrammetry to orient the camera to everything that won't move, and then you can, in effect, zoom in to get past what the physical equipment is, and it'll go all the way to where tower number 3 is. And this isn't Hollywood, it's not Pixar. We're not making it up. This is a digital reconstruction of what is. And it's pretty hard to argue with. So we know where Tower 1, Tower 2, Tower 3 is. We know within 0.2 of an inch where that equipment is located, and we also have the video from the Arco station and 13 other perspectives, all pointing to the same culprit. And so this is one of 2 examples that I'll show you. And in effect, we take my buddy Singleton's security video with all this work that we did, where we digitized 5 miles of the mountain, and then we let the video do the spot flash again. And where's it coming from? Again, ignore that light, that's the street light. But we're going to be able to see from the video, the digital video, there's the first flash. Then there's a second flash 3 seconds later from the same location. Super important. Something happened 3 seconds apart between the first and the second flash, and then about 9-10 seconds expire, and then you're going to see down below the start of what is a grass fire, for lack of a better word. And that's because they didn't properly do what's known as vegetation maintenance. And so when they had a surge, 10 seconds later, the molten material from that surge is igniting the grass beneath the tower. So this is an unusual fire cause and origin event. We've done 23 of them. This is unusual for a variety of reasons, but the bottom line is the photogrammetric evidence is pretty conclusive. I think you would agree. So we shared that with the entire Los Angeles media, and one of our best colleagues in terms of figuring out what happened has been your media. Chapter 7, the ABC News Channel 7, the ABC News affiliate, has done a great job lining up witnesses, helping us grab videos and the like. So all this was kind of a big deal, but when we really blew in, we started seeing that you could see some stuff drop. This video doesn't really tell us, but that tells me there was probably some sort of molten material that was dropping onto the grass. And so I told the New York Times pretty early on, 3 weeks after the fire, the fault data, and I'll tell you what that is in a second, the videos, the witness accounts, they all paint the same picture. Because of Channel 7, I had 4 different witnesses that all said they saw the same thing about 3 seconds apart. I've got the security video showing 2 different flashes 3 seconds apart. But then I'm talking about fault data, and there's a company known as Whisker Labs that has 3 million fault meters across power lines in the United States. They can see surges and the like, and their fault data was showing the same thing. Pizarro's not convinced by April. Well, we don't know whether our equipment caused the Eaton Fire. It's certainly possible that it did. Kind of reminds me when I was in college at the bar trying to pick up a girl. It was possible. I wasn't getting there yet. But he wasn't saying no. And so we knew we'd kind of gotten to them a little bit. We started hearing whispers that they were worried. And so then we showed them the second video, and Adrian Timoran. And you can pretty much tell where it is. And we put this out largely to combat this nonsense that some guy was camping on the hill and started this fire. We know where that campfire was. It was hundreds of feet down the hill. It had nothing to do with it. Santa Ana winds blew down the hill. That's why the fire came into your town. And so everything's kind of fitting. We used the LiDAR reconstruction to reconstruct, in effect, where she came from, and that's not working, but I apologize for that. But the bottom line is we can see these different videos showing the start of the fire, and I could show you 14 of them, but what's the point? It all shows you the same thing. And this lady shot 4 different videos, so we showed the spread coming from tower number 3, down the hill towards 2, towards 1, as we get to the first 4 minutes of the fire. So everything's coming together pretty tightly, okay? This is the still imagery between 4:15, 4:18, 4:19, and functionally 4:20. So while Southern California Edison's trying to sell this soap that it wasn't them, it's getting harder and harder and harder as we release this information and the picture comes together. Last month, we had a new video released to us. I was all ready to show it to you, and then I found out that some clown decided that it was okay to produce a video subject to attorney's eyes only protective order, which is lawyer phrase, we're not going to let anybody see it. So me being a good guy and a rule follower, I'm going to put that over. You can't see it. But the bottom line is it's a 15th perspective that shows what we already know. Now, the litigation. As you know, less so now, but if you've had TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, you have been barraged with lawyer ads. I think they've calmed down. That's good. Don't hire a lawyer based on a social media ad. Please do what you're doing here. Come check people out, go to meetings and the like. The bottom line is there's over 100 firms involved that have clients. There's about 6 that are doing 95% of the work. That's okay. It happens in every fire, but the bottom line is that this week's a good example. On Monday, we had a leadership team meeting, and I'm on this every week. Yesterday, we had a hearing where the judge set the first case for trial in January of 2027. I won't lie to you, we were a little disappointed. We were hoping for June of 26 or October of 26, but there's method behind her madness. Remember, the fire happened on January the 7th, January 8-ish of 2025. The 2-year statute of limitations runs January 7, 8-ish of 2027, and she set the trial a couple of weeks later. Strategically, it's not dumb. It's saying, hey, if you guys want to get whacked into next year, go take it to trial. If you want to put a ring fence around your liability, everybody that had to file a lawsuit has, you know how many claimants there are, settle the case. So I get what she's doing, okay? By the way, excellent judge, no criticism to this judge. Today I was on a discovery team meeting. Discovery is when we ask them for depositions. We send them questions known as interrogatories. We ask for documents through what's called a request for production. And so we're on these meetings constantly. Every day, all day, just working on the litigation, okay? We made a lot of progress. The Securities Exchange Commission requires that companies with adverse events honestly report that information to their shareholders. And so about once a quarter, Southern California Edison faces a Hobson's choice. Do we keep selling soap, which is nonsense, and subject ourselves to shareholder suits for not telling the truth? Or do we come clean? And so the bottom line is that their first quarter investor call, right after their first quarter 10Q was due, they get on the call at on the 29th of April, and they say for the first time, we believe our equipment could have been associated with the ignition. That doesn't mean anything to me. That's like possible. But then he says it is probable. Probable is a loaded word to a lawyer. It's more likely than not. That's my burden of proof. And so when your opponent says it's probable that you're right, they're giving up the ghost. They are conceding that you are correct. And so they had to concede that it's probable that they were going to incur material losses, which means we owe the damage that we caused. Watts is right. What's hidden, right? The videos are right? So, it felt appropriate to do this in order to make the disclosure about this being a probable event. That is CEO speak for I didn't want to get sued for lying to my investors like I have been. Based on where we are today, we're changing our designation to probable. That's a good thing. February, March, April. So in about 100 days, we had taken a company from denying liability to having to concede it. That's good, okay? That doesn't mean you get paid yet, but it's certainly not harmful. So the shift to probable just indicates that we do see a material loss as probable. If a fire, and we conclude that Edison-related fire, we'll have access to, quote, the fund. Now, this is where my buddy Chris Holden gets a kudos. He was your state assemblyman. He was the chair of every committee the assembly had, and he was the sponsor of AB 1054 in 2019, which was the vehicle through which the utilities got out of the soup, most specifically PG&E, and they had to pay $25.5 billion. Nobody was going to invest in that company or the other two unless there was a risk mitigation backstop. His bill, AB 1054, created that. And I feel like an idiot because a reporter asked me at that time, well, do you think it's enough money? And I said, sure, it's enough money, unless they burn down part of San Francisco. I didn't realize they were going to take that literally and burn down part of Los Angeles. But that's exactly what happened, and it's not enough money for what happened in your fire. So they've got to, in effect, gird it up, expand it. Because if they don't, the market, meaning New York hedge funds, investors, national, international, will not invest in the utilities. The stock price will go down. Its cost of renting money will go up. Your rates have to go up. It's not good for California if the publicly owned utilities go under. And so the state of California, back in 2019, through the leadership of Chris Holden, had to come up with a solution. AB 1054 was it. Because Pedro Pizarro burned down part of Los Angeles, now we've got to come up with a new solution to, in effect, strengthen the fund or supplement the fund. And so we're going to talk about that. The CFO of Edison International is trying to keep the stock price up. No problem. There's nothing that's going to preclude us from accessing the fund. There's no limitation on the claims that are paid by the fund. All good news, except for the obvious. Your fire burned down so many homes, you caused more damage than there are dollars in the fund. That's a problem. So it leads to the obvious question, is there enough money in the fund to rebuild all your homes? And the answer is clearly no. Pizarro says we have confidence in the fund. Big deal if the fund's not big enough. My kids have confidence in their allowance until about Tuesday, and it's not enough. How is the current California Wildfire Fund capitalized? It's supposed to be a $21 billion fund, but it takes time to get it there. Why? There's something called non-bypassable charges that you all have been paying since 2001. You remember when another Texas company, Enron, ripped you guys off and was gerrymandering the electrical bills and all this other stuff? It put PG&E in bankruptcy the first time. The way they got out is they borrowed $6 billion from the water board out here, and they've been paying it back by assessing you $2.50 a month for the last 23 years. That assessment was about to expire when somebody came up with the idea in 2019, hey, we can create this AB 1054 by just continuing the assessment until 2035. So these NBCs created the ability to raise from you $10.5 billion collectively. And the thought was, well, the other half ought to be paid by the IOUs, not IOU, investor-owned utilities, which is largely Southern California Edison, PG&E, and whatever San Diego Gas and Electric's calling itself now, Sempri or whatever, okay? So the bottom line is these investor-owned utilities pay in half, you all pay in half collectively, and that raises the money. Here's the problem. It only does it so much a year, and there wasn't $21 billion in it at the time. I think as of last year, Each of the big companies had put in about $7.5 billion, and then they're kicking in collectively $300 million a year that eventually you'll get it to $10.5 billion. But it's not there yet. You all are putting in $2.50 a piece. That adds about $1 billion a year to the fund, but it's not there yet. So when the committee that manages the fund is asked how much money do you have, they've got total IOU contributions of 9.3. Your contributions, the NBC, so far are about 4.2. There's only about $13.5 billion in the fund. They paid some of that out for PG&E's fires like Dixie and Kincaid. And then now we have a $20 billion fire caused by Southern California Edison. 13 is less than 20. We're $7-8 billion in the hole, and it's worse than that because the market will crash, the stock price will crash if you don't have a whole bunch of money in reserve to make them comfortable that if I invest $100 into a California utility, it's not going to go away with the next wildfire. So we've got a real problem. The 2024 annual report of the Wildfire Fund says we've got total contributions of $12.253 billion. With interest and investment earnings, the net position is $12.9 billion. What's the economic impact of the California fires? Now, put aside Palisades. I know some of my colleagues are trying to make it the utilities' fault. I'm not one of them. I'm not here to preach to you about that. But just the Eaton Fire, if you combine the LA fires together, the estimated insured loss is $75 billion. The total losses is over 100. But a lot of that is those rich guys living in Malibu, all those houses that burned down, that aren't the utilities' fault in this lawyer's view. Okay? So, how much is the Eaton Fire? The insured loss, according to Moody's, is $7 to $12 billion. The economic losses are 25% higher than that, and that doesn't cover any of the wrongful deaths, the personal injuries, the mental anguish damages to which you are all entitled because you have what's known as post-traumatic stress disorder because the good Lord did not wire us to run for our lives from a 50-foot wall of fire, as a lot of you did. So you have compensable non-pecuniary damages that have to be paid as well. It's even worse because Milliman says the numbers are higher than Moody's. The total lower estimate is 13.7. The upper estimate is 22.8. You got to add 12% on top of that. And any way you cut the mustard, there's not enough money in this fund to pay for the Eaton Fire. So the Los Angeles Times, Melody Peterson, probably doing the best financial research of anybody reporting on this, says the bottom line is the Eaton Fire alone could wipe out the entire fund, and she is correct. Proving liability is no longer your problem. We have done that. I think you'd agree with me. Your problem is that there's not enough money. So what are we going to do? It's going to fully exhaust the wildfire fund. This is where Chris and some folks, young lady sitting in the back, has been so helpful. This is your lobbyist, in effect. Thank you. Her job is to steer us in the right direction in Sacramento to in effect, cure the shortfall. It's a legislative solution that some lawyer from Texas can't do, so we've got the best folks that did it last time working on how to do it this time with the legislature. So what's the issue? Well, we've got the number one guy in the state to handle this. He did it last time. The problem is you guys have got, I mean, if ever there's an argument against term limits, it's Chris Holden. You took this incredible body of experience and you invited him out of the assembly and replaced him with a newbie. I'm sure the new guy's great, don't get me wrong, okay? But the bottom line is then you have an ethics rule that says he can't lobby for a year, and 7 months into his exodus from the legislature, his hometown burns down. So he can't go to Sacramento and lobby, and so the bottom line is that we're getting some help from some very capable associates of his that are kind of steering us in the right direction. Pizarro has the need to reinsure investors. Every bonus, every stock option, every compensation metric where all these managers get paid is tied to the value of the stock. If they can't reinsure investors that their investment in SCE stock's not going to go in the toilet. They're cooked too. There's no Christmas bonus. There's no Christmas turkey in the Pizarro house. So they're out there saying everything's great, right? The CFO, there's no restriction on the fund. It's going to consume a good quantum of the fund. It's a large fire, but we're engaging legislative leaders. We're confident that they understand the need for expansion of AB 1054's framework. And by the way, I'm sitting in the cheap seats from Texas saying, hell yes. It's exactly what we have to do. Okay? It's the only way out. So they're very comforted by the degree of focus that we see on the part of the governor's office and legislative leaders. I have been warned, being a guy from Texas, and I don't vote for the way they vote, but that's not good enough because I have a Texas accent. The bottom line is that your governor knows what he's doing, at least with respect to wildfire stuff. I watched it in 2019 when he took over for Jerry Brown, that in my view was a complete boob for PG&E, and drove a hard bargain and fixed the problem with Chris Holden's help. And he's here again in 2025, and we've got one more thing that's really good, and that is your governor would really like to be president. You can't run for president with big problems left at home. So you've got two things going for you politically over and above the fact that your governor is a stud in matters of utility stuff. He wants to be president. You can't run for president unless you fix this problem. And you have something called the Olympics. It's going to be here in 2.5 years, and it's going to look really unsightly to have a big town like Altadena look like a burn zone. So everybody's in a hurry. And so those are two things you have an advantage in, which is good. The governor's engaged, the legislative leaders are engaged, but we need you all to be engaged. Kelly's been great, Doug's been great, Chris has been great. We're constantly working, trying to figure this out. They're trying to teach me, what's going on. But the bottom line is we've been advocating for an extension of 1054. The concept is, remember your monthly add-on, that $2.50? Right now it expires in 2035. You've been paying it so long you don't know the difference. If you extend it to 2045 and make your kids pay for it, works for our deficits. Why not this? No, I'm kidding. But the bottom line is nobody notices it, and then you can do what's called securitize that income stream. You can borrow against it to fund things like settlements. And so it's a slick idea. It worked in 2019 when Chris did it. It will work again. Melody Peterson says, hey, the customers could get stuck with a big bill for the Eaton Fire. That is true. Full stop. Your bigger bill is having a $600,000 house, a $1.2 million house, or a $1.8 million house. One thing I've learned about California is everything's more expensive out here. Think about it from a standpoint of math. Nobody's happy about paying a $2.50 surcharge for the rest of your life. But the way I do math, $2.50 times 12 is about $30 a year. And if a fund is created that is going to allow you to rebuild a $1.8 million house, divide that by 30 and see how many years it is. I think it's 6 centuries, if not 6,000. I can't do the math in my head. It's a long time. This is a good deal for you. You are, in effect, looking at the wildfire equivalent of FEMA, if it worked. It's the body populace comes together and collectively ensures bad things that happen to a subset of you. It makes sense in a lot of different ways. It made sense 6 years ago. It makes sense now. So yes, you're going to get stuck with $2.50 a piece, and you shouldn't have to pay it. I agree. But at least from the standpoint of being able to fund the rebuilding of your homes, it's a good deal for you. And hopefully you'll be willing to pay it next time when they burn down Santa Barbara. And they will. Okay? All right. But you shouldn't have to pay for it all. The governor's got a catastrophe response council that oversees the fund. I can tell you as somebody looking at it from the outside, I watched one of these meetings, super competent, super well-informed, super well-designed management of this fund. And so the bottom line is the non-bypassable charge adds roughly $3. If I said $2.50, I'm mistaken. It's not going to break the bank. It's not fun. I'm not saying it's nothing, okay? But they're investing that, and each year that electrical bill surcharge adds $923 million to the fund. So if you extend it for another 10 years, you add $9 billion in an income stream that you can then borrow against, what's called securitization, to pay for the damages caused by a wildfire. That's still not enough. Gavin Newsom knows, because he's dealt with all these New York money guys before, you can't have a fund that just pays for the Eaton damages and has nothing left in it. You've got to have a rainy day fund, okay? So we got to do something legislatively. He hired the same group he hired back in 2019, a bunch of consultants, rich guys from New York called Guggenheim Partners, very capable. Also has a little bit of a conflict because they own stock in the state's 3 big utilities. I wouldn't lose any sleep over that. They own stock in every utility in the United States, okay? But they're experts. And so he consulted with them. He paid them $4 or $5 million to help. And so then we get to what I'm really pitching here tonight, and that is legislative advocacy. Some of you all have heard about what's known as inverse condemnation, which is that if a publicly held utility burned down your house under the California Constitution, they have to pay you for that, for your property damage loss, because you have a due process or a property damage right that the government can't take away from you. So at LA Fire Justice, I've seen it. We call ourselves something different in every fire, but back in 2017 when PG&E started the North Bay fires and killed 34 people and burned down 5,500 houses, they had the temerity to go in front of the legislature in Sacramento the very next year and says, the solution to all of this is to get rid of inverse. When we burn down people's houses, we shouldn't have to pay to rebuild it. And Aaron Brockovich, courtesy of Doug Boxer and Christian Archer and the like, went to Sacramento and raised bloody murder. It was so bad they called us and said, get her off the steps of the Capitol. We get it, we get it, we get it. And that bill died because of legislative advocacy. That's what you have to do tonight. This is why I'm here. Number one, Pizarro thinks it would be grand if only you all paid for the augmentation of this fund. After all, I started the fire. Why should I have to pay for it? That's really what he's saying. So you need to raise hell about that. We should also argue that Edison should not even get to participate in this augmented fund until they pay the Eaton Fire survivals. You heard about this voluntary fund that's being run by my friend Ken Feinberg. That's all a canard right now to make themselves look like good guys in front of the California legislature, which is meeting right now until September the 12th, because they're saying, well, we're already working on paying the fund. They haven't promised to do anything, okay? This is a charade. But I like Ken Feinberg, and I think he can turn it into something that helps a lot of people, and I'll explain that in a second. So the Edison Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund is in effect the precondition politically for anybody in Sacramento voting for this stuff. That's why they did it, not because they're good people and want to pay you, okay? The legislature will consider enacting a law to expand the fund during this short session that we're now in between August 18 and September the 12th. The time is now. You have 2.5 weeks to let your voices be heard in a way that can do what Aaron did back in 2018 on your behalf. You must write letters. You must make phone calls. You must raise hell. Okay? If that session ends without this bill, it's not going to be good for you, and it's not going to be good for the utilities, and it's not going to be good for the state of California. Knowing that they need to do this, they announced this Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund. Big deal. The day before I came out last month, everybody's asking, all right, we're going to have this fund, we're all going to get paid, except they've got no fund rules. They've not offered a single dollar that they're going to put into it. They just threw out this thing, we're going to have a fund. Vote for our bill. That's all that's happened so far, and I'll show you that in a second. boxer gets on TV and kind of busts them up a little bit. They're neither quick nor easy nor equitable. He kind of poo-poos it. And I don't say he's wrong. And I said, well, I don't know. You know, at least they've accepted responsibility for the fire. That's a start. That's good. Of course, they had to. And I said, after 6 months of denying responsibility, we're pleased for our clients that Edison's finally reversed course and now acknowledges what we've already proven. They started the fire and they need to pay for the damage it's caused. And that's true. We are there on part one of a two-part lawsuit. We've proven liability, and they basically have coughed it up. They won't say it that way, but that's where we are. So we start having meetings to talk about this fund that isn't. It's coming this fall. This fall happens to be after the legislature closes its business on September the 12th. I find that very convenient. The Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program will offer a streamlined approach to quickly compensate victims. That is code word for we're going to flick you a couple of nickels and pay you a half a loaf instead of the full loaf of bread. Be careful. You can do it without me, except you don't have any experts that they're going to require before they pay you $1. So that's a problem. Remember, part one, part two. The biggest problem is this is a plan that's not a plan. It's an idea. It's a concept. It is a charade to get legislators to, in effect, pass their bill. We'll get you the details on the website soon. In the fall, code word after September 12th. So don't be fooled by this. BP, he administered the fund, and he learned a lot. The problem was is anybody he didn't pay in BP got the money back, and that wasn't cool. So one of the elements of a good fund is they kick in all the money and they don't get it back, so that Feinberg doesn't have a financial incentive. But one thing that we learned is he doesn't pay people that aren't real, with real claims, with real documentation. His partner's even tougher. She requires all sorts of economic modelers, experts, and the like. And I don't say that by way of criticism. She's a detailed-oriented person, and they will design the fund in that regard. I text Ken before the last meeting, hey, I'm glad you're running this fund. And then I find out maybe he's not. You know, I'm looking forward to this, Ken. This is going to be great. He very nicely, I'm going to draft you some protocols in a few weeks. That was a month ago. No protocols yet. And you won't see them during this legislative session, okay? You'll see them after it's already been used. Spread the word. It's voluntary with shared draft. Give Feinberg a chance. And I'm here to tell you I'm ready to give Ken a chance, okay? But just don't be fooled as to what's happening here. They are trying to pass legislation. The proof is in the pudding about whether we're going to help a lot of people when we get the claims rules, the protocols. Good plans, they put the money in and the client has no ability to mess with it. That's not what this is. When you go to the website, Feinberg and Barros will continue to consult, but they will not be involved in the review of the claims on program administration. That means their lawyers are going to do it, which means they're going to offer you a half a loaf. So beware of it. So what do I think of the fund? I think it's a brilliant idea using an independent neutral. I don't think it's that great if you're using the lawyer they've been paying for 20 years to short sheet you, and he's my friend. But his job is to save this company money, not to pay you what's fair. So what do I think of the fund? Bottom line is it's not that great. It doesn't have enough money into it. They haven't offered anything. They haven't told you what they're going to pay and how. And by the way, AB 1054 doesn't have enough money. This is where you need to get your pencils out. This is your job, your homework, your duty to yourselves. Write down Senate Bill 254. Those are the most important three numbers in your life right now. $354 is the new 316. $254. Did I say 354? You saved me from myself. I don't care what the number is. They need to pass it. Okay? And let me tell you what I'm talking about. There's going to be a little scrum that says this is all lawyer-driven and the like, but you've seen the houses burned down. I invite you to come to our office I really hope you will. Because when you're getting all these Instagram ads and the social media ads about everybody wanting to be your lawyer, ask them whether they got an office right here in Pasadena or Altadena. And I'm not talking about somebody with an office in San Francisco or somebody in an office in San Diego or back in Texas or in New York. Are they here with you? We hired, I think it's up to 25 or 27 of your neighbors that we trained how to do this. They all wear those green shirts. They're now my friends and my bosses in the back. They will do this one by one by one by one. This is not going to work because of me and Christian. We know how to set it up. It's going to work because your neighbors are all in. And they will be all in an office that we signed a 5-year lease on. We're not leaving. The Instagram ad guys never were here in the first place. We'll keep doing these meetings. So my opinion today about Feinberg's fund is I think they hired the best guy in the country, but they're not using him. It would be like paying Tom Brady to sit on the bench. I don't get it. And it's also too early to tell. They haven't told us what the rules and the processes are. They haven't told us how much they're going to pay in. And in fairness to them, they can't because they have to get this legislation passed, okay? Who's administering the fund? It's not Feinberg. God help you if it's Doug Dixon. Who decides the damages? It's not Feinberg. God help you if it's Doug Dixon, their lawyer. So we don't know. Unless Edison deposits a fixed sum into a fund and lets an expert like Feinberg administer it, I'll never recommend it to you. If they kick in like they did in BP, $20.5 billion with everything Feinberg knows from the School of Hard Knocks back in BP, I'd say give him a chance. He's that good. So, the fund is nothing but a charade to convince the legislature to protect it by making you, the ratepayers, pay for an enlargement of AB 1054. That's all that's happening. How do I know? I knew I was coming out here last week. I wrote Feinberg. You told me you were going to get back to me in 3 weeks. Where's the rules? Well, and I said, I'm willing to evangelize the fund. And he says, we're not there yet. So he writes me back, and again, he's very polite. We're still in the design phase, so it's premature for you to forward documents, evangelize. So I don't know what to tell you yet. What I know is the legislative session is ongoing, so the fund, the announcement of it, had the desired effect if they can pass the bill, but the proof is in the pudding about what they're going to do after. And we'll be back next month to take you through with whatever he sends me, and I want to give the guy a chance. Okay, we can get you paid a lot faster if it works. If not, we'll whip them down at the courthouse. My message is because it's Ken Feinberg, he's entitled to the benefit of the doubt, not because it's his company. I don't trust his company. I don't think they treat you right. I don't think they tell you the truth when they burn down your houses, and I don't think you should trust them. And I've done this before. So what does 254 do? Not 354. We don't care about that bill. 254. The bottom line is it's been branded as an overhaul of the way that California finances major utility expenditures. It's a cost containment theme. And I don't know how well they're doing that. Okay, you care about it. I care about, do they have enough money to pay you? So it requires the investor-owned utilities to issue securitized debt to pay for investments in wildfire mitigation, because the faster we can keep these from happening, the faster we get rid of the problem. But here's what you care about. It will raise $18 billion. Now, if you have a $19 billion fund and you add 18 on top of it, or a $21 billion fund and 18 on top of it, you get to 39, which can pay for a $20 billion fire and leave a lot for the next one. And that's what they need to do. And so I give credit to Governor Newsom for not trying to cheap out and do a half a loaf. He knows he's got a problem. He wants to be president. He's got to solve it. And so here's the solution. 254. There's a scrum going on, and I want you to raise hell about this, and that is that right now, like Chris's bill, $9 billion of the 18 comes from customers like you and that $3 extension of the surcharge. Another $9 billion comes from shareholders in what we in Texas comes out of Ask National Bank. Excuse me, I mean, we take it out of them. And frankly, when you invest in a company that does the wrong thing, burns out houses, the stockholder ought to have to pay for that. The managers, the CEOs ought to get smaller bonuses and the like. This is the most important slide of tonight, and we're almost done. And I'm going to call out every address and phone number so that it's in the transcript, and you guys will all get this on Doug's weekly deal. John Harabedian, who is Chris Holden's successor, your man in the Assembly. P.O. Box 942849, Sacramento, California, 94249-0041. His phone number is 916-319-2041. His fax is 916-319-2141. Write him, call him, insist that 254 get passed. Your state senator, boy, I blew this one, is Sarah Renee Perez. Somehow, spell check beat me up. Her address is 1021 O Street, Suite 6720, Sacramento, California, 95814. Her phone number is 916-651-4025. If you guys can't convince your assemblyman and your senator to vote for this, you need to get new ones. And they're for it, by the way. I don't mean to suggest that. The Senate Pro Tem, the lead guy in the Senate, is Mike McGuire. Lots of experience from Northern California wildfire. 1021 O Street, Suite 8518, Sacramento, California, 95814. His phone number is 916-651-4002. Call him, write him. He is critical. He's the most powerful man in your Senate. Speaker Robert Rivas, State Capitol, P.O. Box 942849, Sacramento, California, 94249-0029. Call him at 916-319-2029. Fax him at 916-319-2129. And most importantly, and he's leading, is Governor Gavin Newsom. Write him at 1021 O Street, Suite 9000, Sacramento, California, 95814. His office's phone number is 916-445-2841. Give him a kudos for pushing it. We're counting on you, Governor, to get this bill across the line, okay? You have until September 12th. It makes years of difference in terms of how long it will be before you get back into your house. Football season starts in 10 days. You should write 10 letters before the kickoff. I'm telling you, it's that important. I watched it happen in 2018, which is the only reason you have a cause of action for inverse condemnation, because we rallied the troops and stormed the Capitol with Aaron Brockovich, and you need to do it right now. Okay? Every one of you. If you didn't bring a pen, when you get this transcript on Friday in Doug's weekly deal, you write it down and you write the letter and you make the calls. Anybody in Chris's office will tell you for every letter they get, they assume it's 100 people. For every phone call, it's even more than that. You raise a little hell, you have a big voice. They will listen. But they're going to vote this out or not in the next 2 weeks. You can't wait past Friday, which is why I'm here tonight, which is why I'm reading in all those addresses and phone numbers. You must do this before the kickoff starts, okay? We'll know by September 12th how many letters got in, because they'll vote for it if you do this. If you want to join LAFirejustice.com, here's how you do it. I'd really love for you to go by the office, 221 East Walnut. It will be the thing that distinguishes our team from everybody else. Christian goes in and rents an ungodly amount of space. I said, how are you going to fill this? And then he has. We're out of space. Had to get an annex for more people to help with claims process. We're hiring. I spent $36 million on the Northern California wildfires. We budgeted over 30 here. We will spend the money to make certain that each and every one of your claims is done and done right. Inside your folder, if you have not joined us, you can. On the right side, there's a one-page contract. Christian will tell you I do battle with our partners all the time, these New Yorkers that want to have a 15-page contract with a bunch of Latin. And I said, no, one page. One page, very simple. It has 7 paragraphs. Paragraph number 1 is the firm's authority. If you hire us, you are endowing us with your authority. You're deputizing us to act on your behalf as your lawyer. to file a lawsuit, to make a claim, and the like. You're still the boss, but when we need information from you, you must cooperate. You can't go off the grid. I need your cell numbers. I need to know how to get a hold of you because there are deadlines in litigation. If you go dark on me, your case is going to get dismissed. I see it happen every day. So client cooperation. The contingent fee agreement, what does that mean? Do not pay anybody your hard-earned cash to handle a wildfire case. If somebody's asking you for a couple $100 an hour, they do not know what they're doing. Okay? We only get paid if we recover. We only get paid a percentage of what we recover, and the good news is in California you have inverse condemnation, which Aaron Brockovich saved for you. It says they have to pay your attorney's fees on the property damage that they cause. I don't have that in any other state where I litigate. California law is better than that, which is great. And so the fee is 1/3. There's like 4 or 5 different law firms that are all splitting it up. Everybody's got a different role. It doesn't cost you any more to have 4 or 5. We split that up, and those percentages are in the contract. The bottom line is that I've got New York bankers that loan me hundreds of millions of dollars to do these crazy, huge projects. They want to be paid back. So, in effect, I'm loaning them money for your litigation expenses, but we're really good about keeping that under control. We don't charge you for the rent at the office. We don't charge you for me to fly in and fly out to do these meetings. We don't charge for what this costs to rent. What we charge you for is litigation expenses, the experts that we have to hire on your behalf. But you have economies of scale. All that high-tech work costs well over $1 million. If you were my only client, you'd have to pay that back. You wouldn't clear anything. But because you're one of 5,000, each of you gets it for $200 a piece. So you get economies of scale. The expenses are advanced by the firm and repaid back. I can't promise, but if you're not a bellwether case, if your case doesn't actually go to trial, historically, we've been able to keep that to about 2, 3, 4%. So you're recovering 65 cents on the dollar. But remember, the dollar is higher because they're paying your attorney's fees on your property damage. Multiple clients, this is an ethical rule. Remember those economies of scale that I told you about? Super important. But in order for me to get you those economies of scale, I have to represent a ton of people all at once, which is why we hire all these good-looking people in the green. But in order to represent a ton of people at once, I have to disclose that to you. You have to agree to it. The contract discloses it. We represent, I know we're over 1,000 people. I don't know what the number is. But we have every single one of you in a database. We know how to communicate with each of you. We've got the bodies. We're ready to go. And the bottom line is if you sign up, you're consenting. This is a new one, artificial intelligence. I don't want you to get worried about it, okay? We use a closed-loop system, but we are constantly, like everybody else, I mean, you guys are the home base of AI. We just do it a lot faster and cheaper, okay? But the ethical rules say I need to disclose that. We're not going to sell your stuff to ChatGPT, okay? We run a closed loop, but I have to disclose it. Law and venue. I keep getting asked, why don't we just agree to an arbitration in New York and that way we don't get sued? Because it's a BS move. We're out here, we are your guests, we're asking for you to consider hiring us. If we have a problem, if I do something wrong, if one of my people misses a deadline, I need to pay you for the damage that's caused, just the same way I'm advocating that SE needs to pay for the damage they caused. If I didn't do it and you're just picking on me because you think I'm an easy mark, I'll come out and defend myself. And I'll tell the arbitrator or the judge all the things that we did. And we don't get sued very often because we do our job right, okay? But I'm willing to do it in your venue, you don't have to come to Texas to chase me, okay? You sue me right here if you have to. And then lastly, we're not ambulance chasers. I don't knock on doors. I want to shoot people that do. We are allowed to invite you to a public setting, to give a speech like this, to let you make your own choice, and that's what we're going to do. And the reason we do this is this matters. I want to end where I started. That video you saw, I've seen 22 times. Doing these lawsuits right is the difference between towns dying, everybody leaving, regional economic recessions, and neighborhoods like Coffey Park that look like Dresden in 1945, and because of the work that we do, $5.5 billion got pumped into that community, and every house that went down has now been rebuilt better than ever. Same thing's happening on Maui. Same thing will happen in your town, and I really want it to. I mean, I've never met so many cool people with such a cool vibe as Altadena, California, and it will come back. It won't be the same, but it will be better than ever because of the people that are here. So that's what I have to say to you, and I very much appreciate you listening. If you have any questions, we'll fire away. Yes, ma'am. She's asking, wouldn't it just be easier to sign a petition? And nobody's going to read the letters. I'm going to push back on you. I don't think it's as effective, and here's why. When a petition's got 30,000 names in it, it comes in once, and it gets put on a shelf, and there's, oh, that's a petition. Each letter has to be logged by legislative staff. Chris tells all of his staff, you got to do this because they try to be responsive. They do it over and over and over again. It has a much louder impact when it's done one at a time. Okay? In the back, yes, ma'am. There's a mic for you.
In some of the information that you've put out, which has been great, you talked about how in the past SCE was encouraged by the state to retire these old structures.
Yeah.
And the former CEO and some other woman on the board got on the Public Utilities Commission and helped defeat that. Are we going to see those kinds of reparations coming out of this where they will be forced to do things they should do to prevent wildfires?
Yeah. So, and again, I hate when I overdo politics, but I think it's a fair statement, for better or for worse, that when Democrats win, they tend to regulate more. When Republicans win, they tend to deregulate. One of them may be right. Maybe you got safety in one of them, but it costs you money. Economic firepower, according to the Republicans, is more important than X, Y, or Z. The bottom line is when Schwarzenegger was governor, 2002, after you guys impeached Gray Davis, there was all sorts of deregulation, and there was a series of meetings that the PUC had, and there used to be a PUC rule that said, thou shalt remove abandoned power lines. Full stop. It's unambiguous. For 37 years, that was the law of the state of California. And it was a good idea because it's not supplying any electricity whatsoever. It's just creating a hazard out there, which is what burned your house down. Some genius decided it would be a great idea to change the rule to say, well, let's let the utility decide whether it's abandoned or merely, quote, idled, close quote. And so according to Southern California Edison, a line that has been abandoned since I was 4 years old after an earthquake in 1971 used to be abandoned between 1971 and 2005 when the rule changed, and now it's idled. That's a bunch of garbage, okay? But they changed the rule. They let the fox guard the hen house. It's like no rule at all. I think that's going to change back after this fire, but that's why we're here. Some genius decided, let's change that rule.
So you asked about reparations. It's not directly on point, but one of the things we did in the PG&E litigation, remember, they burned down a bunch of towns year after year after year. They filed bankruptcy. They went into bankruptcy. They had to come out of bankruptcy. Because of the work that Michael did, along with other lawyers, there were $13.5 billion available to the victims of those fires. It wasn't just about getting money for those victims. It was trying to change corporate behavior to ensure that this didn't happen again. Now, PG&E is not a perfect company, but they're a better company, I think you would agree, than they were when they started burning down towns. And a couple of things we did. The board of directors was gone. The CEO was gone. Fired. Importantly, the company was no longer allowed to issue dividends. Those are payments to shareholders, stockholders, for a period of time. It ended up being about 4.5 years. And the reason why they weren't allowed to do that is because they were giving away all their profits to their shareholders or to bonuses to their executives and not reinvesting in their infrastructure, which ultimately failed spectacularly, which killed 124 people. So I'm not saying we're going to do that here. I mean, that could be on the table. I'll leave it to Mikal as he's negotiating things. But we do have this secondary goal, in addition to getting you justice with all these people that are working here, that are in our office, and there's a bunch of people that aren't here, by the way. We have a bunch of what we call dedicated case managers, who will work with you one-on-one. So if you come with us, those of you who are clients, thank you. You will be hearing from your dedicated case manager within about a week to 10 days, and we will start the process of building up your cases.
Doug, we should talk a little bit about the process. My name's Christian Archer, and you know, the office that we took at 221 East Walnut is a great office. And hey guys, come on in. I just want you to see kind of some of the faces that are in our office every day. You don't have to have an appointment. You could just walk in, right, and ask any question that's on your mind. We have, again, about 100 people that aren't here that are going to be working very hard on your behalf to make sure, and this is a process. This is not something that's going to happen one time, right? We're going to get into the details of your claim. And so there are a ton of people here tonight that have got questions that do not want to ask their questions in front of 60 other people, right? That's what we do, right? And I encourage you to come in. We've got people that really do care. These are people from Altadena. These are people from Sierra Madre and Pasadena that care about the future of Altadena, and they are going to bust their tail. And Chris Holden is going to hold us responsible to make sure that we do. I promise you, he does on a daily basis. But there are lots of very, very personal questions, and we're going to have to push. We want to know all of the contents in your home. And I just want to leave you with this one thing, and that is when you think about things that you've lost in your home, right, or that you lost along the way. So if your Vitamix blender, and 5 years ago you paid $400 for a Vitamix blender, they have to replace that Vitamix blender. And if it costs $600 in today's dollars to replace that Vitamix blender, that's what we're going to add to your contents list, right? And so everybody here is working to increase the highest value possible of the things that were taken from you, right? They owe that back to you. And so working with us and this incredible team and the people that you will never meet that don't even live in California that are going to be working on your behalf is to increase and make sure that we get and document everything that was taken from you so you can get it back in this lawsuit. And the lawyers that we have are amazing. They are the best in class. They're the best at this, doing this fire stuff. But we have, again, an amazing team that's going to work hard for you every day. We also have Mental Health Mondays. And everybody here is suffering, right? We've seen this over the last decade of working on these cases. Everyone in this room is suffering from some type of mental health. Along the way, we need to know your narrative of the night of the fire. And we're going to work with you, and we're going to help you write the narrative of exactly where you were and what happened to you. And in the end, it's going to be a part of Mikal and Doug and Gary Morrow's a lawyer working here. Nathaniel Mack is a lawyer working here, right? They need to go in with that narrative and say, this person is emotionally damaged because of what happened, and they'll set up a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Well, I kind of saw the fire, or I fled the fire, which is tier 1. And there will be a number, a financial number next to tier 1 claims. And so that's part of what we do in terms of writing the narrative of what happened the night of the fire. There are a whole series of things that I would love to tell you about. Set an appointment with somebody in a green shirt or non-green shirt, but that you see up here, to be able to ask all of the questions, and they can go into these. I won't go further, but they will go into all of these details about what makes your claim and why we're the best at this unfortunate set of circumstances. But we do insurance workshops. We do rebuilding. How do you rebuild? Insurance, mental health. What else am I missing, guys? Business, right? So lots of people had businesses in their home, or you lost a business that had a, brick and mortar. And so that's a separate claim. And we've got experts in terms of rebuilding that business. So I just want to make sure, Michael, and what we do at these town halls is make sure you understand that this is righteous litigation. And the work that they do is amazing, right? What we do, we're the worker bees, right? And we make sure that we arm Michael and Doug and Nathaniel Mack and Gary and all of our lawyers with the best representation of you, because it's going to be on paper, right? And so it takes a lot of work, and we'll do a number of meetings between now and a settlement, and between now and the time that you get paid to put your best foot forward. So anyhow, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, set an appointment. You can go on the website to kind of see the work that we do, call the number, set an appointment, or just show up at 221 East Walnut.
I want to brag on this, man, just for a second. You guys remember something called the pandemic? COVID, whatever that was. We didn't have it in Texas, but we're not kidding. I was at the negotiating table when $25.5 billion was committed and $13.5 to victims. And we had 16,000 people that we had to put through this chute. And we had a problem because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And Christian and I got on the phone and we said, what do we do? How are we going to get these people paid? We can't even meet them. And literally this guy came out to Santa Rosa and rented like a car dealership and put armies of people in what was the equivalent of green shirts back then, 40 feet apart, whatever the health inspector would let him do, and set up computer stalls 40 feet apart, and literally they worked through the pandemic to get our clients paid. And if that's not the indication you need that we ain't leaving, it would have been real easy for him to stay in Texas with his kids. Instead, he moved them out here and just lived here for 3 years with all these people who've been doing this with me for fire after fire after fire. I mean, a lot of the folks that were here lived in Maui for a year. I've got staff out in Maui right now. Don't feel sorry for them. That sounds great to me. But my point is that they don't quit. We know from 22 prior fires what it takes to maximize your recovery, and we owe an individual duty to each of you to do it over and 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 over again. And to get you every last dollar we can, because the truth of the matter is your biggest enemy is something called inflation. And if we don't get you every dollar to which you're entitled, you're not going to have enough money to rebuild the house. Just full stop. So we've got to do it right. Okay?
And I actually left out one of our lawyers, who is an amazing guy, Rico Reyes. And Rico's a Marine, Harvard, MBA from the University of Texas, just an amazing human. But when you look at what's going on in California and with ICE and with a lot of raids, the Latino community in Altadena is afraid. And you can see it across the board from grocery stores, like all of this. And so we're also doing in language, in Spanish stuff. And so for a lot of people that will not come to a big meeting like this, and if you know them, we do everything in language as well to make sure that people are comfortable with this crazy situation that's going on around this, certainly the state of California. So we've got a team of great lawyers, and I did not want to leave Rico out of this. So anyhow, sorry. Questions?
For Michael, this is kind of alarming that the fund is so short of what the estimated claims are. Isn't there any insurance that covers?
They have $1 billion in insurance.
I have one more. Oh,
They have $1 billion in insurance and cost a $20 billion fire.
just $1 billion. And then the other thing that I had, who can file claims against this fund? I mean, could the insurance companies who reimburse losses subrogate and take out of this fund?
They can and they do. We work together with the insurance companies. We share experts. We coordinate. We're both plaintiffs in effect. and we're very much aligned, except that when you have a limited fund, we scrap about who gets what, like out in Maui, there's just not enough money. Here, that's not going to be a problem. If you guys write your letters, and if you make your phone calls, this is not going to be a limited fund. We'll get you all paid, okay? Yes, sir.
Are these settlements taxed by the state or the Fed? And also, is part of that settlement deducted to pay back the insurance companies for what you've already been paid?
Okay, the answer to your first question is no, no, and soon to be yes. And let me explain that. Doug and some of the other legislative advocacy guys, we've been bitching and moaning for years about how unfair it is to take somebody who bought a house with after-tax dollars, have it burned down through no fault of their own, and then to rebuild it, they have to pay taxes on the money to rebuild it. The California legislature created legislation that said wildfire victims don't pay California state income tax on recoveries, so that's great. We actually got the federal government during the waning months of the Biden administration to do it. So if you recover money in one of our settlements in 2023, 24, 25, the answer is no, you don't get taxed. But it expires at the end of this year. We've got lobbyists working up in Washington to try to get that extended as part of what's called the continuing resolution, or the CR, which is going to keep the government running instead of shutting down at the end of September. It's a fight every time. You know, Congress, you know, except for tax breaks and the big beautiful bill, they tend to extend things 3-4 years at a time so they can undo it later. That's what happened to our tax break on wildfire stuff. It expires at the end of this year. We got to go get it reauthorized. Going once. Yes, sir.
So my question is you spoke about a letter sending a letter to our representatives in Sacramento. That's for 254. Is there a form letter or something that we should get that we could kind
If
of
Doug
make the
Boxer did
narrative?
his job right, we're going to have one for you on Friday.
Okay.
Now, I'm teasing. Yeah, we'll create one and we'll put it. You guys all getting the weekly updates? I hope so.
Okay.
We'll shoot you one this Friday. You know, just kind of some talking points. We won't write it for you, but just generally,
Right,
okay?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And by the way, I tease him because he's great at that kind of stuff. So it's not like he's neglecting.
No, I just want to make sure you understand that if a form letter comes in, the elected official, and I happen to know one, they tend to discount the form letters because all you got to do is, you don't really do anything. You just sign your name on it. Someone else wrote it. If it comes from you and it's written, it can be typed and it can be sent by an email, but it's personal to you. They want to hear why they need to do what you're asking them to do from you. So I will give general talking points about what language to use, but I'm not going to write it for you because it will just get tossed in the trash. Okay?
And you can put your narrative, you can start practicing your narrative that Christian wants from you about what happened that night. You put some of that in those letters, they get read, okay? But it's the same reason that I answered your question about the petition. They just throw the petition aside. It's not stuff they're going to read. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir. Would you ask that again with that mic?
Yeah, so what is Governor Newsom's plan to pay back that $18 billion?
Well, it's not to pay back, it's to raise it. They raised $9 billion from the 3 utilities out of stockholder funds, and then they raised $9 billion with the $3 a month surcharge to you all between 2035 and 2045. It's never paid back, it's spent. And so I think what you're asking is if you borrow the money against that income stream, what I call securitization, how do you pay that back? You pay it back by assigning the $3 a month that you're going to get between 2035 and 45. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, in the back. Here's your mic.
When I was in your office meeting with some of these young wonderful women that talked to us, they said that the judge will be the one that is creating the classes that will determine the amount of your settlement, or the category that you get put into anyway, which will help determine your settlement. Is that right?
Not exactly. It might be a judge, not the judge. We hire what's called special masters to allocate or to divide up settlement pots, in effect. So, for example, in PG&E, $13.5 billion settlement pot, 77,000 people filed applications to take from that pot. It wouldn't be fair to pay everybody the same. Some people have bigger houses. Some people were 9 miles away and had a sore throat, and other people got burned over half their body. So you have to, in effect, evaluate the claims. There's a lady named Kathy Yanni that does this professionally. She did such a good job in PG&E. We hired her again to do it in Hawaii. I don't know who that person will be here. The other way, and Southern California Edison likes to do these one at a time. Their lawyers get to bill like pirates for 8 years to mediate one case a day for 8 years. Not a very fast way to get people into their houses, so I refused to do it. We got in a huge fight in Bobcat. I had judges yelling at me. I said, Judge, I got 400 clients. I'm not coming out here 400 times so this guy can bill 400 days of his time. He said, pay me the money. I'll get a special master to divide it up, and that's what happened. Okay?
Good evening. It's my understanding that when this lawsuit goes before the judge, or it's open to the public, do you guys publish the days that there's actually hearings?
Yeah,
So that if we wanted to attend, we can attend?
Yeah, you know, in fact, I already did. Let me see. Yeah, September 3rd is the next one. I had a slide. I screwed it up. But anyway, the bottom line is the PowerPoint, which I think comes with these updates, has got a date of all the hearings that we've had. The next one is September 3rd. We'll put it in the Friday update. Yeah. Yeah, well, okay. Talk about, I'm sorry, yeah. So Doug Boxer, for 7 years now, has been writing a weekly update. And some of them are short and pithy and just hi and, you know, here's what we did this week or think about that or whatever. Some of them are super substantive, like this Friday is when he writes your letter for you. No, I'm kidding. But you know, we'll have talking points this Friday that we got to move, right? We're in the middle of a legislation. But if you're one of our clients, from the minute you sign that contract, you go into one of Christian's computers and you're put on the mailing list. We do email and text. We don't mail. We can, but we don't. And you get Doug Boxer's weekly updates that he works very hard on, and they're super constructive and super information filled.
Just so you know, if you have a pen or pencil, the courthouse is the Spring Street Courthouse, 312 North Spring Street in downtown Los Angeles, Department 17 in front of Judge Laura Siegel, September 3rd at 10 a.m. That's the next hearing. And they'll always be there, and she's scheduling them once a month unless the parties want to come together faster than that, and that will happen all the way through till what Michael put up there, January of 2027, when the first trial happens.
If I could just brag on her for a second, I've done wildfire cases against this company where the judge just was sorry. I mean, he was a good guy, but he just was lazy. This lady works her fanny off. I've never seen a judge work so hard. We had a good one out in Maui, too. Hardworking judges get cases settled faster, and you guys drew a good choice. Judge Siegel has had more hearings faster than any wildfire judge I've ever seen. So it's credit to her and you all that elected her, I guess, or picked her. Okay, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
What is the burden of proof for non-material damages like PTSD, emotional distress?
What's the burden of proof for non-pecuniary damages like PTSD and emotional distress? You have to prove that the fact that you have those damages is more likely than not. It's called the preponderance of the evidence. And you have to prove the amount. Now, how do you prove the amount of a non-pecuniary damage? That's up for the jury to allocate. But we spend a lot of time. Remember, Christian was talking about your narrative. We have everybody write out a narrative describing their psychological, you know, I'm going to say adventure. It wasn't much of an adventure, your nightmare, so that the people that are assessing how much you get for non-pecuniary damages can feel it. In the same way, when you write letters to the legislature, don't use a form letter. Write what happened, and then hit his talking points. Tell your story.
Also, if you see a doctor, right? If you do see a doctor, and I can only encourage that, right? I mean, because it's real, and everybody here in this room has it. So we'll get medical bills back as well. right? That also helps with the narrative of this is what I was thinking about, and this is what triggers me, and this is what happened the night of the fire, and I've seen expert help. You know, all of those things you should be doing, but will be a part of your narrative that we will sit down with you and write and guide you through it. It's a very personal thing. We'll do it one-on-one, right? We don't do it as a couple. We do it one-on-one because there might be things that you're suffering that you don't fully disclose, right, to your partner or spouse or others. It's just real. And we want to, again, we want to make the best argument forward, but are you talking about medical?
No,
All of those bills, we're going to include in your recovery, right? And so do it.
Guys, when I'm trying a case for non-pecuniary damages and there's a diary, it's gold. It just is. Don't write it for your lawsuit. Write it because it helps heal you. People express things in the privacy of their own writings that you never see. Christian's getting married in November, and his fiance sends me letters about her harrowing experiences every night. It's terrifying what she goes through. I'm kidding. But seriously, write it out. Think about it. Journal. And as Christian said, go to groups. Find a church. Find a community counseling group. PTSD does not go away by itself unless you work through it. You must work on the problem. It's good for your lawsuit, and it's good for your recovery.
And we've got a team of totally different people. Like Nicole, when we launched this, the Mental Health Mondays, we had a few doctors from around LA reach out to us and say that they would love to help, right? We now have 30 plus doctors that are like, we saw the response, we saw people coming in, taking it very seriously, leaning into this, and even though it's in a group, right, in a group setting, we have literally a line of doctors that are wanting to help.
How do you access that? You just come to the office?
Come to our office. Yeah. LA Fire Justice, it's on our website, and each one of these things regarding businesses, regarding insurance, mental health is all on our website, and you can just go on there and we update it every single day.
All right, we're going to shut it down. If you have any individual questions, ask somebody in a green shirt. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time.